Hey everybody, I'm Mike. This is Budget Guns and Gear Reviews, and you are watching The Right to the People, where we use the first to defend the second every Friday night at 11:30 p.m. Eastern. So uncover your keyboards, fire up your fingers, and come join the conversation.
Hey everybody, it is Friday, April 10th. April 10th, 2020, and you're watching The Right of the People. Got a lot going on this weekend, man. A whole bunch of garbage from the usual suspects, of course. But before we dive into all that, I'd like to say hello to everybody out there in the chat and say hello to my esteemed panel of guests. We have still coming back for punishment. I can't believe it. Glimtech Arms with us. How you doing, sir?
I am doing just fine, sir, but actually I'm just a figment of the imagination. I'm really not here.
So I'm hallucinating? Sweet!
Yes, you are. From all those hallucinogenic drugs you're taking. Yeah.
Awesome.
Snorting that Ronin.
That's right. We got
Thanks for the invite,
one who
bud.
strikes at night, Mike from GunTube, otherwise known as Night Strike 1. How you doing, sir?
I would like to file a formal complaint. I disapprove of Glimtech Arms being in this panel.
Duly noted.
Cool. Fire me.
And we have the
I'm actually joking, by the way.
extraordinaire, Rokal 219. How you doing, sir?
Hello, all you kittens and tigers. Hope you're going to enjoy the show tonight. Carol Baskin.
Alrighty, and then we have last week's the 2020 NRAM giveaway winner pickle dinner, Calaveras 32 special. How you doing, sir?
Doing all right, Budget. Thanks for the invite, and thank you for sending out that gift card to me. That's I'll definitely I've already made good use of it.
Awesome, outstanding. What'd you get? If you don't mind saying, if you don't want to say, don't.
No, I'm cool with it.
Okay, what'd you get?
It's the PSA. I think they call it their Freedom Upper. I can't remember exactly the name of it. Just basic, 5.56, 16-inch. Just a round handguard and A2 front sight, but it's something I can feed just bulk ammo, which will be, a nice I can get out and, play with the rifle a little bit.
Awesome, man. Good choice. Solid choice for the money. So I hope you enjoy it, and glad that we could get that out to you as a token of appreciation for all the support you've given. Out there, speaking of all the support and appreciation, I got to tell you, once again, humbled and amazed to have so many people here already, and a lot of the same people who keep coming back for punishment here to watch the show. So awesome. We got Calaveras 32 special doing double duty, both in the panel and in the chat. Mystic Guns in the house, Ohio 45 ACP, DM Foss, Jacob S., welcome. Bo Weevil, hey Bo, sup? Ozzy Osbourne, Bark at the Moon. Glimtech's out there in the chat as well. Green Badger Outdoors, the 402 Outdoorsman. Guitar Man Pete, how you doing? Seven Wonders, how you doing, brother? And so on and so forth. If you're out there watching, sound off in the chat. Well, actually, to you, it's over here. Sound off in the chat so that I can say hi to you. If you're watching this on the replay on the wonderful YouTubes, sound off below in the comments. That way, I can talk to you too, because this is a two-way street. It is an exchange of ideas. It is not just simply me sitting here bloviating and you listening. You are an integral part of this conversation. I do have a little bit of awesomeness to announce. There is yet another place where you can find my content. My channel just got activated over on full30.com. So if you're over there, go sub to me on Full30. And you'll start seeing stuff there too. That way, if YouTube's ever gets a wild hair and decides to shove my channel down the memory hole, well, I'll at least have some kind of video video platform to go on. You know, I'll have full 30 gun streamer and gun tube, and yeah, that'll be awesome. So, got a lot. Okay, trying to pay attention to what's going on in the chat. Got a lot going on this week, so let's start diving right into this stuff. Of course, it would be all right if I had the doggone thing. See, amateur hour here. Amateur hour. Boom! Here we go. Got this piece from Breitbart. From, what's the date? April 5th, 2020. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo says he is immune to NRA lawsuits. What a pompous ass. Governor Andrew Cuomo, Democrat, told reporters he is immune to NRA lawsuits and wishes New Yorkers could develop a similar immunity to the coronavirus. I think I've been sued by the NRA, must be a dozen times. I didn't even know I was sued this time. You become sort of lawsuit immune, he said. I wish you could become immune to this virus the way I've become immune to NRA lawsuits, Cuomo said during a Saturday coronavirus briefing. Here, let's listen to the pompous son of a biscuit. Nah, I can't call him a son of a biscuit. Biscuits are good and wholesome. This guy is clearly not.
I think I've been sued by the NRA, must be a dozen times. I didn't even know I was sued this time. You become sort of lawsuit immune. I wish you could become immune to this virus the way I've become immune to NRA lawsuits.
Look at that smug jackass. For those that might not have heard it, let's go ahead and play this again. I'm sorry, folks. I know. For those that did hear it, I'm sorry. But, yeah, let's play this one more time.
I've been sued by the NRA, must be a dozen times. I didn't even know I was sued this time. You become sort of lawsuit immune. I wish you could become immune to this virus the way I've become immune to NRA lawsuits.
Bragging about being sued by the NRA a dozen times. That just goes to show how much of a tyrant he is. And how much, tell me, Governor, how many of those lawsuits have you won? I'm willing to bet none of them.
Budget.
Arrogant piece of filth.
Permission to use the A word.
Permission granted because it fits.
Okay. Well, are we surprised from this asshole, Governor Cuomo? He is the older brother of everyone's favorite Don't Call Me Fredo.
Fredo!
So,
Smug,
Fredo's the man.
arrogant clown.
I mean, I hate to say this, but his whole family, including not just him, his brother, probably the rest of his entire family, are a-holes. So I'm just saying. Yeah.
Got a couple more coming into the chat out there. Jason Stewart, David Ramirez, a gun-toting pacifist. Yeah, congrats on the wound-up SOB of the week budget. I'm hoping to avoid that this week. We'll see. But I'm hoping. I'm sorry. Go ahead, fellas.
No, you're getting it this week. It's yours. We're handing the torch.
Why? I haven't done anything yet. I'm going to try not to.
Not yet, but we're working on it. And as much as I hate to agree with Nice Strike, I have to agree with him on this one.
Y'all are just being negative.
Almost a moron.
Y'all are just being negative.
Hey, let people agree with me, darn it.
Anyway, it's not that often we do, but, when we do, when he's right, he's right.
Chris Fulmer out in the chat. How you doing, sir?
Thank you.
Yeah, so there we have it. New York, I don't know what you folks are thinking to elect this smug, pompous clown jackass, but hey, thanks.
Well, I'll tell you right now, they're not thinking. They just vote for whatever has Democrat in front of their name.
Now, I don't know how many of you watch Johnny B's channel, otherwise known as Gun Drama Johnny, or Hill Person Johnny, or et cetera, But he broke a story here a while ago that I can only find one source for, and I haven't found an actual article on it or anything, so let's take it with a grain of salt. But I had to add this last minute. From the National Association for Gun Rights. Breaking. Capitol Hill sources tell us that House Democrats are trying to sneak gun control into the fourth phase of the COVID-19 stimulus package. Nancy Pelosi wants gun controls like universal gun registration and red flag gun confiscation included in the fourth phase. Call your U.S. representative and tell them no gun control power grabs in any stimulus bill. 202-224-3121. Once you've done that, then they want you to go to their petition. So let's go to this legislative. Let's follow this. Oh, that's all they show you is that. So yeah, there's no link to a news story or a primary source or anything in there, but I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye on this, and as I find out something more concrete, I will definitely let you know. But it's something that we need to be on top of. So you know what, let me actually go back here and copy that phone number here. Copy. And then let me put it out in the chat here. Go ahead and call your representatives in D.C. Call the switchboard and leave them a message. Tell them abso-frickin-lutely not. We're not going to tolerate that kind of garbage. Although, it doesn't surprise me, because those of you who've been watching the show for a while, over the last couple years, wow, has it been 1 or 2 years? No, December 2017, so oh my goodness, yeah, 2 years. Anyhow, those of you who've been watching the show over the last 2 years know that I am of a firm believer that the anti-gunners follow the strategy of never let a tragedy go to waste. So they're damn sure not going to let this go to waste. It wouldn't surprise me to find out that this would be confirmed, that they're trying to play politics and further their agenda with relief efforts for this national emergency, and want to hold it hostage in order to get what they want done. They're obviously more control. Gun control is never about the gun. It's always about the control. Go ahead and discuss, fellas.
Well, remember, the Republicans went on national television and said they were going to forego their vacation during that break in the legislative session so that they could tackle this crisis, this emergency. Okay, and instead of doing the same thing, because they are concerned about the people, because the Democrats are the people's champions, they did not forgo their vacation during that break in the legislative session.
Say it isn't so.
To take their vacations, of which they had some what do they call them? Some meetings or whatever, but instead of lasting an hour or so like they're supposed to, they had them that lasted under 2 minutes because nobody showed up because everybody was on vacation.
Well, they got it. Ruling over the peasantry is hard, man. They got to have their relaxation.
Right.
I mean,
but I'm not saying
all you unruly peasants, man. You need to be told what to do in every aspect of your life. What you can do, what you can wear, where you can go, how many of you can congregate, what stuff you're allowed to buy, what stuff you're not allowed to buy. It's hard thinking this shit up.
And I'm not saying one party is better than the other, but as far as I'm concerned, I would rather vote for the party that would forego a vacation to do their job than the party that doesn't.
Tyrants doing tyrant shit work up a sweat, man. They got to have some relaxation.
But you understand what I'm saying, though, right?
This is the same ploy that they enact all the time. Just like 5087. When they brought out 5087 and they were trying to pass it, it was trying to go through everything, all the channels. Well, it failed, all right? So now you got 5717. Same stuff, same story, just different wording. So now what they're going to employ is they're taking pieces. And if this, I talked about this today on Instagram before Johnny even said anything. And I'm telling you, they're taking pieces out of these big, huge clunkers, as I call them, because they're clunker bills. They're never going to pass anything because they're so restrictive. And they're going to sprinkle it like they did in Washington and other states to see what sticks. This has been their MO for the last, 3 or 4 years they've done this. They've thought up something that was so irrational, but yet they will take pieces. Because you notice there's no assault weapons ban in there. There's no taxing of ammunition. No, they're picking pieces out of this bill now to hook them as riders or pork or fat or whatever you want to call these things onto these bills. This is what they've tried to do. They tried to do with the first stimulus check. And people are getting those checks. People got those checks. I know people personally close to me that have gotten these checks today. They're happy. But what you're not going to be happy is when you get these other pieces of legislation that they're about to sign, that they want to sign, and they have these things, these riders, these pieces of pork in them. It's the same MO that these people, the gun grabbers, the Democrats, the whoever, it's the same bird, just of a different wing. It's the same thing these people have been trying to do. So now they're going to pick pieces out of this bill and try and implement them. It's the same story. It's the same song and dance, but yet don't let up. Don't let up on your legislators. You tell them you don't want anything in these stimulus packages but stimulus agenda.
Yep.
We don't want anything about windmills, trash, cleaning oceans, saving beaches. It's not what this is for. That's for a different time, a different place. But when you continuously just think about the money they're going to give you and the stuff that you can and cannot buy, this stuff sneaks through. There's something, it's called the magician's trick. He uses that one hand to mesmerize, to Google you, to bewilder you, while he's doing something else with that other hand. And this is the same aspect, the same creation.
Yeah, and bullfighters do it too with their cape. They get the bull looking at the cape. They don't see the sword behind it. You know, actually historical fencers do the same thing too. But I digress. Seven Wonders says, ironic that they're called parties when they're the only ones having any fun. Clovertack, which, welcome Clover, says, I'm not saying it's 100% safe, but McConnell already said he knew what they were doing, and that crap would not fly in the Senate. I sure hope not. I hope not. Let's see. 402 Outdoorsman, don't worry, we just incurred like another $15,000 each citizen of debt. Yeah, no kidding. DM Foss says, as a representative for the unwashed masses, I would like to thank our overlords for removing the need to think for ourselves and for providing everything you think we need. Yeah, there you go. There you go. And Clover says, plus, I've yet to see any of this language, not saying one way or another, but NAGR said they had a source, so everyone is running with it like it's a done deal. Yeah, that's what I said. I'm going to be keeping an eye on it. And I have yet to find a primary source. I don't see a news article. I don't see anything written anywhere. I don't see any documentation whatsoever. I'm going to keep an eye on it. I'm going to look at it. And as I find out more, I'll let you guys know. But on the other hand, wouldn't shock me at all. And that is a sad commentary on the state of our country's lawmakers, right? If there ever was one, the fact that some kind of garbage like this, wouldn't shock me. Clovertech says, unlike most politicians, I want to read the bill. Yeah, me too. I want to see it. Of course, you'd almost have to have you'd have to have a staff to find it, most likely, because it's going to be buried somewhere deep within something that most people are going to skip over, and they do that garbage on purpose. Firmly believe it.
Have you read the first stimulus bill that came out that they signed that passed and where everybody's getting their stuff now? Have you read that bill?
No, I have not.
I think you would probably poop yourself. So where depends when you read that bill and see what they're getting.
Why, did they throw a whole bunch of garbage in it?
Yep.
Yes, they gave themselves a $25,000 raise. I wish I could get one of those.
I know, right? That would be like totally awesome if I could give myself a raise.
Why will they give everybody else $1,200 one time?
Wow. Garbage. So let's keep an eye on that. In legal news, there was a court case called Brandy v. Villanueva that, well, you know what? Let's just go ahead and read the article instead of me trying to summarize the doggone thing, because I'll make a hash out of that. This is from Reason Magazine, Reason.com, by Eugene Volok, from 4/6/2020. District Court okays closing gun shops as non-essential, but only by wrongly downplaying, I think, the degree to which the law interferes with Second Amendment rights. Today's decision in Brandy v. Villanueva held the LA County and the City of LA were entitled to include gun shops as non-essential businesses that couldn't be closed because of the coronavirus emergency. Sheriff Villanueva had announced that firearms and ammunition retailers constitute essential businesses under the county order and thus may remain open. But the court held that this change in policy is not reflected in changes in ordinances or regulations, but rather came from Sheriff Villanueva's public announcement. So the court could review the order as it had been written before the sheriff's exclusion of gun shops. Here was the court's analysis. Assuming without deciding that the county and city orders burden conduct protected by the Second Amendment by affecting the ability of law-abiding citizens to possess a handgun, intermediate scrutiny is warranted because the county and city orders are simply not as sweeping as the complete handgun ban at issue in Heller. In applying intermediate scrutiny to the county and city orders, the court must consider whether the government's stated objective is significant, substantial, or important, and whether there's a reasonable fit between the challenged regulation and the asserted objective. The city's and county's stated objective, reducing the spread of COVID-19, a highly dangerous and infectious disease, undoubtedly constitutes an important government objective. Moreover, because this disease spreads where an infected person coughs, sneezes, or otherwise expels aerosolized droplets containing the virus, the closure of non-essential businesses, including firearms and ammunition retailers, reasonably fits the city's and county's stated objectives of reducing the spread of this disease. Accordingly, plaintiffs failed to demonstrate a likelihood of success on the merits of the Second Amendment claim against the county and city orders. McDougall similarly reasoned, although the county order may implicate the Second Amendment by impacting the ability of law-abiding citizens to possess the quintessential self-defense weapon, the handgun, this court finds that intermediate scrutiny is appropriate because the county order is simply not as sweeping as the complete handgun ban at issue. Talking about in Heller. The county order does not specifically target handgun ownership, does not prohibit the ownership of a handgun outright, and is temporary. Therefore, the burden of the county order on the Second Amendment, if any, is not substantial, so intermediate scrutiny is appropriate. I think both courts erred here because they understated how much the orders, as written, without the exception recognized by the sheriff, interferes with the right to keep and bear arms. An order shutting down gun stores completely and indefinitely blocks LA County residents who don't already have a gun from acquiring a gun, especially since they can't even leave the county, given the state's stay-at-home order. That's a much more sweeping restriction than the large-capacity magazine ban in FIOC. And while it's somewhat less sweeping than the D.C. handgun ban in that it will presumably be lifted at some unknowable future time, though we hope it won't be long, it's even more sweeping because it blocks buying even rifles and shotguns, not just handguns like in D.C. Any restriction that basically makes it impossible for millions of LA residents, those who don't already have a gun, from exercising their constitutional right can't be viewed as a mild constraint that's subject merely to intermediate scrutiny. It should be judged at least under strict scrutiny, and the government should have to show that less restrictive means, such as the protective measures being used at supermarkets, liquor stores, and other places, can't lower the risk to an acceptable level. And I think they can indeed so lower the risk, especially since the transactions can be quicker than in supermarkets, and done with a minimum of physical interaction between the buyer and seller. So, I agree. Applying intermediate scrutiny here is bunk, and it should be, at the very least, strict scrutiny. So, we have one court saying closing gun shops is fine because they're not essential. We have other jurisdictions and other courts saying something completely different, saying that they are essential. This sets up some interesting opportunities down the road for Second Amendment related cases to go further in the federal courts, maybe even ultimately to SCOTUS, because they love when a court in one part of the country says, nah, you can't do this, and a court in another part of the country says, oh, yeah, you can. They love that kind of thing. So that's the kind of case that SCOTUS might take down the road. What do you guys think?
Yeah, especially when the DHS and the feds also announced that, yes, gun shops, manufacturers, ammo manufacturers are all necessary, and they're all protected. So yeah, this is going to be an interesting one because now they're saying they're not. These places are saying nope, we got to close it because it's not necessary, and the feds are coming out and saying yes, they are. So
exactly,
it's going to be interesting. See how many of those lose.
Well, the Department of Justice and the feds don't make law. Law is not made by ABC agencies. So I'm on the point of that's not my problem. These people that voted these people into these positions in their state, that's their problem. I don't think it should be the nation's problem. I think it should be that state's problem. That's how I look at it. These people don't make law. Congress makes law. Until I see Congress come out and pass a law that says gun shops are essential, what are you going to do? What are you going to say? Are we going to start really picking what laws should be and can't be enforced? These people don't make law. They have no right to make law. And look at the hot mess the ATF got into when they banned bump stocks. But nobody's talking about these people. No, it hasn't changed.
Again, that's what I'm saying. So the ABC companies, they don't make law, quote unquote, but they make rulings, and their rulings, in most cases, when it comes from federal agencies, are just as binding as law, even though they aren't.
Yeah,
but they're adhered that way by most people.
Maybe that has to change.
Oh, undoubtedly it has to change. And the problem it is just sitting there, unfortunately, I understand where you're coming from, but again, if it's done in one state, it's going to spill over to somebody else. And if it doesn't get stopped there, then it's going to keep going. Case in point, look at California.
Yeah.
What happens in California goes to Washington. What happens to Washington goes to Oregon. What happens to Oregon goes to, it's a never-ending,
but
it never gets stopped.
Then I'll throw the monkey in the wrench. Look at Illinois. Illinois declared all their gun shops essential and they should stay open. So technically it doesn't spill over. Technically, it's what the people want, because the people of Illinois said these certain businesses are staying open, and the governor agreed that they should stay open. So that should implement people that we have the power. The people have the power. If we push back enough, things will change. But if you sit on the couch and you throw your hands in the air, things don't change. We've been saying this about gun rights for how many years now? How many decades that we've been saying people get involved into the fight? If you don't want your gun shops to close, guess what you do? First of all, you listen to this whole show, and then you go write your governor and say gun shops are essential. And then you start implying little bits and pieces of what factions you have for your state and local organizations, and continue to do it. I understand what Glenn Tech's saying, but yet it doesn't necessarily spill over, because Illinois is one of the most anti-gun states in the union, next to California. And they still have their gun shops open.
Which surprises me.
But it's the pushback.
I think it's great.
The only reason they do is because they got sued. They were under threat of lawsuit. That's the only reason they even stayed open.
And speaking of lawsuits, SCOTUS is considering another case. Now, they're considering a lot of cases, but this one just got added to it. They haven't granted cert yet, but they are considering this one. This is from BearingArms.com from April 8th by Cam Edwards. U.S. Supreme Court takes another 2A case to conference. We're still waiting for the U.S. Supreme Court's decision in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus New York City, but in the meantime, justices will be considering another Second Amendment-related case in conference later this month. Rodriguez v. San Jose is a case out of California, and the issue before the court is whether or not a woman's Second Amendment rights were violated when police seized her firearms and refused to return them because they believed her husband to be a danger to himself or others. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals bizarrely ruled that Lori Rodriguez has no right to keep her firearms, though they also noted that there was nothing illegal about her buying a gun either. The court argued that because police believed that her husband, who, according to Rodriguez, did not have access to her firearms, could pose a threat to public safety, firearms that had been seized from their home when her husband was taken into custody under a mental health hold did not have to be returned to her. Lori contended in the state court proceedings that defendants were violating her right to keep and bear arms by refusing to return the firearms because of her husband's prohibited status, even though she was not prohibited from acquiring or possessing firearms and had promised to take all steps required under California law to secure the firearms in a gun safe. The California Court of Appeals expressly rejected this argument and the notion that the Second Amendment required returning her the guns. Highlighting that Lori had not pointed to any authority in the contrary, the court stated that the Supreme Court's decisions in District of Columbia v. Heller and McDonald v. City of Chicago suggested that the Second Amendment did not extend to keeping and bearing either any particular firearms or firearms that have been confiscated from a mentally ill person. Ultimately, the court concluded that Lori had failed to show that the trial court's order violated the Second Amendment. Under the Ninth Circuit's decision, you may have the right to own a firearm, but the police have the power to seize it and refuse to return it. As long as you can buy another one, says the court, your Second Amendment rights remain intact. Thankfully, this ridiculous decision has now reached the Supreme Court, though that doesn't guarantee that they'll accept the case. In fact, I'd say it's unlikely that they'll do anything with it until the decision in NYSRPA v. NYC is handed down. There are already a number of Second Amendment-related cases that have been in conference for months, including challenges to New Jersey's concealed carry laws and a lawsuit taking on California's microstamping law. Everything seems to be on hold until we get the opinion on the challenge to one of New York City's gun laws, and depending on what that opinion says, we could see a number of cases dealing with the right to keep and bear arms accepted by the Supreme Court in the coming months. So, apparently, the Ninth Circuit says that they can take your guns and don't ever have to give them back, even though you didn't do anything, it was somebody else, and even though you possess the means to prevent someone else from getting access to them, as long as you can buy another gun, they can keep the ones they already took, and then they can just go take that one and not give it back, and you can buy another one, then they can go take it, and then you can legally buy another one, and then they can go take it, etc., ad nauseum. Absolutely ridiculous. The Ninth Circuit almost made it onto Moron of the Week contestants, but we had such a deep field for that one. I decided to put this one in topics. Crazy. What do you think? Are they right, or are they nuttier than squirrel poop?
That was so contradictory in their response. It is unbelievable. So the reason they took her guns away is because they arrested him.
Correct.
And put him on a mental health hold. They took her guns because of his actions.
Yes.
They aren't going to return her guns because they don't. They say they don't have to because of his actions, even though they're her guns and her property.
And she can keep him from having access to them.
Okay, like I said, that's secondary to the fact that they took her property away.
Yep.
Without due process and unlawfully. They took her property away because of somebody else that they did that. Well, they really didn't even actually do, because apparently he was only committed for a 72-hour hold and was released.
Yeah.
And found to be competent, or otherwise they would have kept him.
Yep.
So they took her property and seized her property and took it away for no reason whatsoever.
Correct.
It was my understanding that it was supposed to be, if you, at least when you're filling out your paperwork, if you were held against your will on a mental for more than, I thought it was like a week or something like that, not just, 72 hours. Am I mistaken?
Now the 4473. Let me pull. I can tell you exactly how it's worded, because it really doesn't. You have to be committed involuntarily and found to be mentally defective.
Have you ever been committed to a mental institute? That's the wording for the 4473. I think it's 11D, maybe. It's on the second page.
Well, I appreciate you guys checking for me. That's right. It's been longer than I'd like to admit since I filled out one of those.
It only states if you've ever been committed to a mental institute.
It's under 11F. Have you ever been adjudicated as a mental defective, or have you ever been committed to a mental institution?
Yeah.
Being on a 72-hour hold and not being committed. That's actually came through under court.
Yep.
Because you are not committed.
Committed via court.
You are being committed via court or by that's the 72-hour. A 72-hour hold is a 72-hour observation. It's not quote unquote a commitment.
Yeah, you got to sign paperwork. If anybody signed paperwork to put you into a hospital, you're screwed.
And apparently that's not the case. And so,
correct.
And they won't give her guns back, even though she did nothing wrong. She can prevent him from getting access to them, and he wasn't committed anyway. He wasn't adjudicated as a mental defective, but they don't have to give him back. Because, she could just go out and buy more, which they can then take.
I'm pretty sure they have to give them back, because I'm pretty sure that's violating the Fifth Amendment.
Well, I'm pretty sure the Ninth Circuit says no, they don't.
Yeah.
That's why this is before SCOTUS.
Under the Fifth Amendment, and where it pertains to property, yes, they do.
I agree, but
Yeah. Under the Fourth as well.
The Ninth Circus
the Fourth
doesn't.
as well. Well, the
Under the
Ninth
First
Circus has
Amendment,
its own problems.
Well, yeah.
Under the First Amendment, it should be that I can show how to build an AR on any kind of platform that I want and put it on the internet, but that's not true.
The
So
First Amendment
amendments aren't
restricts
really
the government from interfering with your speech. It does not restrict a private entity from interfering with your speech.
See, the problem is it says speech, not video.
correct.
Well, but it's been ruled that
Video is a
speech.
form of speech.
But it's not written down, unfortunately.
So there we have that. That'll be an
That's the
interesting
type of
case
problems
to watch.
we're dealing with.
That'll be an interesting case to watch if SCOTUS grants it cert. I think that ultimately, though, we're going to have to wait a while until the NYSRPA case gets decided, and we'll see how broadly or narrowly they rule on that. And that'll determine where everything else goes. I think that's why these 2A cases are languishing in conference right now, because they're waiting for that ruling to come out before they do anything else. Because that might render some of these other cases moot. We'll see.
Right, but it is interesting that for how long that's where the Supreme Court wouldn't even look at anything remotely, at 2A. But now they've heard one, and
about 10 years.
Yeah, and they've heard one, and they have multiple other ones, at their fingertips that they can pick up at any time. So the fact that there's that many moving up to their level at this point is rather interesting to me.
Yeah.
It's amazing what happens when you have a change of judges.
Yeah.
And you get more conservative ones on the bench.
That's why, and I keep telling you, even though he's not the most 2A friendly fellow in the world, not the champion of the Second Amendment that we had wished he would be, the election of Donald Trump was a staggeringly, historically, incredibly important event, because it allowed the courts to get some more conservative judges in there at the federal level, including the Ninth Circuit. Eventually that court's going to flip and keep Hildebeest from appointing moonbat liberal, granola farting, unicorn riding people as judges, which would have been an absolute disaster for our country. So whether we agree with Trump on the bump stocks, which we absolutely don't, I don't think any of us here do, historically, incredibly divine intervention, I think, to have Trump be elected president and have his nominees go into the Supreme Court and the federal courts. That's absolutely.
Talk about that the nutty ninth very well could flip eventually.
Yep.
That's where I think the way that they've been handling the Duncan V. Becerra, which is the magazine ban here in California. Late last week, I think it was. You may have talked about this last week. If you did, please stop me.
No, I did not.
But that's oral arguments. They did them, via webcam. Thursday of last week, and the more or less the state's argument was boiled down to what I understood it as is we can restrict this more or less because we want to. They didn't really have much of a reason behind it, and all three of the judges on the panel lit into that into Becerra's guy pretty hard, which was not the way I was expecting it to go.
Well, it's like if you ask a cop, what's your probable cause for this? And he says, probably because I felt like it. Yeah, no.
See, that's the thing, because the Ninth Circus has changed quite a few judges.
Yeah, it's changing already. It hasn't
2A.
totally flipped, but it's getting there. And that's why I say having Trump elected as opposed to Hillary was incredible.
And unfortunately,
whether he's perfect or not, because we all know he isn't, way better than what would have happened.
Right, because that's even 10 years. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think what happened here with this poor lady's case is she got stuck with a couple of the judges that are still left-wing screwballs. And unfortunately, she's going to suffer for it unless I'm sure they're going to appeal it.
Obama appointee.
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to get
The
appealed.
case was an Obama appointee. And that's
Right, that's
why.
right. Yeah, here, even just 3-4 years ago, any 2A case that went before the 9th got treated like hers.
Yeah.
Versus Becerra, Duncan v. Becerra, it was a George H.W. Bush appointee, a Trump appointee, and a Clinton appointee, if I remember correctly, on the panel.
Yep. Well, this lady, she's kind of hosed right now. Because these next two cases, these next two articles demonstrate why you need a gun. The first one almost made it into the self-defense shoutouts, but I decided to move it. Once I found the second article, I decided to move it into the main topics because these two illustrate two different cases of why you need to have some means of armed protection, and why it's critical that you have access to it, that you aren't stripped of it, particularly without good cause. First up is a piece from Breitbart by A.W.R. Hawkins from April 7th. UFC light heavyweight uses kitchen knife to fight off home invader. Ultimate Fighting Championship number 3 ranked light heavyweight Anthony Smith used a kitchen knife to fight off a home invader Sunday morning in Nebraska. Yahoo Sports reports that Smith was asleep when his wife woke him at 4 a.m. after hearing noises. Smith then heard a suspect in the house who was screaming at the top of his lungs. Smith went to find the man while his wife gathered their daughters in a bedroom behind the closed door for safety. ESPN reports that Smith then discovered the suspect, Luke Haberman, and a fight ensued. Smith fights at 205 pounds. Somehow, he said, this man who weighed around 170 pounds was still coming at him, an elite UFC fighter, for minutes. No normal human is able to fight like that, Smith said. I'm by no means the baddest dude on the planet, but he's a regular Joe and I had a hard time dealing with him. And he took everything I gave him, every punch, every knee, every elbow. He took every single one of them and kept fighting me. Smith said his mother-in-law brought him a kitchen knife at some point during the struggle, which he held to Haberman. MMA Junkie reports that police then arrived to help subdue Haberman. Smith said, I'm not lying when I said it was one of the toughest fights I've had in my whole life. I went into that fight ready to die. Nobody smart breaks into a house in the middle of the night unarmed. When they break in at night, it's to hurt people. Smith told ESPN MMA that he sleeps with a gun within reach 99.9% of the time, but his gun was in a bag when the invasion occurred. So, folks, there we have a young, healthy, highly trained, highly experienced individual. I mean, he's a top-tier MMA fighter. And he couldn't stop this guy unarmed. He had to eventually have a kitchen knife, and it took a hell of a lot out of him to do this. I'm not a wimp. I'm a rough man. I am a trained man. I'm an experienced man. I'm in a rough profession. I fight all the time. But this MMA dude would walk through me like I'm wet toilet paper. I know that. I'm not in that kind of shape. And this little dude, which to me 170 is little, held his own with him for minutes upon minutes upon minutes. Never discount what the need for a force equalizer. This case shows that you don't know what someone's capable of physically. You don't know whether they're drugged that could cause them to endure things they normally wouldn't. You don't know, everyone's different, and you never know how you're going to be able to deal with them in an unarmed way, especially in the middle of the freaking night in your kitchen. So, don't discount that the need for the ability to be armed to protect yourself, because that can happen anytime, anywhere, any place. I mean, the stereotypical area. This shows the why you would want to have a firearm with you wherever you are as well. This is 11.com. Durham truck driver killed 3 women at Tennessee truck stop before being shot, killed by law enforcement. From Wednesday, April 8, 2020. Knoxville, Tennessee, WTVD. A Durham truck driver was shot and killed by law enforcement after stabbing 4 women at a Tennessee truck stop, killing 3 of them. According to the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, Idris Abdus-Salam, 33, is the man responsible for the violence that happened before 7 a.m. Tuesday at a Pilot truck stop in Knoxville, Tennessee. Investigators said Abdus-Salam was in the parking lot holding a knife when officers arrived. Officers said they tried to get him to drop the knife, but he refused. At some point, one of the officers opened fire, killing Abdus-Salam. 3 of the women Abdus-Salam stabbed were employees at the truck stop. All 3 of them died from their injuries. A female customer at the truck stop was also stabbed. She was taken to the hospital and later released. This guy had a thing against women for sure. Today is a difficult day for the Pilot Company family, a statement from Pilot said. We are devastated to confirm the loss of 3 team members and an injury of a guest after an act of violence at our Strawberry Plains, Tennessee location this morning. It is with heavy hearts that we extend our deepest sympathy to the families and loved ones of the victims. Knox County Sheriff Tom Spangler said the deputy who fired the shot was not hurt. The investigation remains active and ongoing. It's a very large scene. It involves outside and inside, said Earhart. Pilot CEO Jimmy Haslam came to the center and could be seen conferring with Spangler and other authorities, the Knoxville News Sentinel reported. So, these 2 cases illustrate that you can be a young, trained, experienced combatant and not be able to handle somebody without a weapon of some kind. And it also goes to the other one shows that you can be going about your business anytime, any place, anywhere, and crazy could happen. If you don't have the ability to defend yourself against that, you're done. What do you guys think? Am I off track here?
Does anyone know what the Pilot Company's policy is on their employees and customers being armed? Because especially in a place like Tennessee, I'm surprised there wasn't somebody.
Yeah, pilots, because we go and pilot all the time. Employees are not allowed to be armed and pilot. That's a company-wide policy. Customers, that's a different story, but employees aren't allowed to be armed.
There you go. And that's why I disagree with those policies. But we've talked about cases like this before where company policy has forbidden someone from carrying a firearm and bad things happen because of it. Or rather, bad things happened and no one could stop it because they followed company policy. I've got to tell you that if I did not work in a place that was prohibited by law and I was merely prohibited by policy, well, concealed is concealed. That's all I'd say about that. But given that I work in a place that's prohibited to carry by law, and, well, in a jail, it's not a good idea.
Yeah, that's where I was going to say, I normally don't like the phrase, but with where you are employed, common sense might be a real thing to for
Exactly.
a prohibited carry.
That's why I don't just go by the concealed means concealed theory where I work. I actually do what I'm supposed to because It's a good idea under that circumstance, but that's really the only one I can think of that it is a good idea. Is in a situation like, you know, working in a correctional institution where you shouldn't be armed inside the gate. Other than that, you know, pants on, guns on.
Yeah, ours is the same way. You know, we're armed to the teeth until we get to the gate, and then we clear out and go in, do our thing, pick up our guys, come back out, and arm back up again.
Yeah. Carrying a firearm inside a correctional facility is well, it's an act of stupidity, I think. And speaking of acts of stupidity,
I did have a question before we moved on to
another tale of
a different topic.
stupidity.
what? Go ahead.
As I did have a question before we move on. Just kind of as a ballpark, because I don't know if you or Glimtech can get into details, but that's where, given if you were inside and stuff really hit the fan, how long do you think the response would be before someone came in with some kind of equalizer, whether it be firearm or something else to assist you?
Depending upon how long it takes to get the call, if the call goes out, 5 minutes tops, which is an eternity in those situations. But they respond to us really quick.
Still significantly better than most of us.
Ours is almost instantly because the control room is armed. Because there's only you don't have access to the control room. Nobody does, except for an act of Congress.
Yeah.
So the control room is armed. So we get on the radio and say, "Hey, we need bodies." And we have a CERT team that is mobilizing there in under 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, we have our own internal responses generally under a minute. But outside help who would be armed would be within 5. Maybe 10 tops, depending upon where they're at in the county and how many's on shift.
Okay, and that's also why I was saying, no, not necessarily firearms, but just some kind of, force multiplier that could be brought to your aid.
Oh yeah, I can have other bodies there within a minute.
So significantly better response time than Joe Public. So Joe Public needs to be prepared to bring their own force multiplier.
Absolutely. And that's another reason why I'm comfortable doing it unarmed, is because A, it's a bad idea, and B, if all I have to do is call a code and there's bodies there, they're swarming. So I'm not, I ain't worried about it at all. Doesn't bother me in the slightest.
Okay, thank you. That's all
Hey,
I wanted
mods,
to hear.
do what you got to do. That's all I'm going to say. Keep an eye on things and do what you got to do, guys. Anyhow, talking about bad ideas. Now you've done screwed up my segue.
And now prepare yourself for another tale of stupidity in this episode of Moron of the Week.
All right, here we go. Our first contestant from Cheddar.com. As firearm sales spike, Gifford's advocate says lock those guns away. By Lauren Sonnenberg from April 3rd, 2020. Gun sales spiked last month as fears around the coronavirus pandemic rose. A veteran ATF special agent told Cheddar that new gun owners need to make sure they know how to store and use those firearms safely. So far, that sounds, other than the sensationalism, knowing how to use firearms safely is a good thing. Use and store firearms safely is a good thing. Hell, I just put out a video on that very subject, Awesome on that. Totally cool. I understand the fear. I understand the concern. I have it myself, he said. but we don't want to make rash decisions that place ourselves, our neighbors, and our families more at risk than actually keeping them safe. The FBI ran more than 3.7 million background checks last month amid the influx of firearms purchases, although the agency notes that there is not necessarily a direct correlation between the number of checks conducted and the number of sales. David Chipman, senior policy advisor at the Giffords organization, said hopelessness, anxiety, and fear might cause people to try to use firearms to control some aspect of their lives as they are inundated with concerning news about COVID-19, but there are risks to that choice. They might think that they're die-hard, ready to go, but unfortunately they're more like Tiger King, and they're putting themselves and their family in danger, he said, referencing the popular new Netflix series and its central figure's love of guns. Particularly without proper gun training, Chipman worries that gun owners are putting people at risk. Unintentional shootings make up 1.3% of gun deaths and 18% of gun injuries. He suggested first-time gun owners secure unloaded firearms. This is where he gets on the list here tonight. Let me read this again. He suggested that first-time gun owners secure unloaded firearms. Quote, hide it behind the cans of tuna and beef jerky that you've stored in the cabinet, unquote, he said. I'm much more concerned about these guns being stored safely in homes now and not unintendedly putting families at risk or the gun buyer themselves at risk. Chipman said he's concerned about an increase in domestic violence cases and the possibility of a gun becoming part of that equation. Experts have warned quarantine may lead to more domestic violence incidents sprung from anxiety, loss of jobs, and more time at home. Now you put a gun in the middle of a domestic violence incident, the lethality just soars, he said. Or, maybe the smaller, weaker partner has the ability to defend themselves against the larger, more aggressive one, but I digress. Let me read this again, in case someone didn't catch this. He suggested first-time gun owners secure unloaded firearms. Hide it behind the cans of tuna and beef jerky that you stored in the cabinet. He said, I'm much more concerned about these guns being stored safely in homes now and not unintendedly putting families at risk or the gun buyer themselves at risk. So his idea, an veteran ATF special agent, his idea of safely storing a gun is to stick it behind a can of fucking tuna. What a maroon. What an ignoramus. Boy, oh boy, oh boy.
Love it.
Behind a can of tuna. So I could just chuck my gun cabinet out and put my guns behind the tuna in the cupboard, and that'll be all right. That'll keep.
Especially when it's safer behind the microwave popcorn. Let's get it right.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Wow. But wait, there's more, because our next contestant, this is from KTLA 5. This is by the Los Angeles Times from April 9th. The manager of a gun store at the Los Angeles Police Academy has been arrested for allegedly stealing firearms and selling them to several officers and an LA County Sheriff's deputy, according to records and sources. Archie Duenas, 33, was booked on suspicion of felony grand theft on March 20th after nearly 40 firearms disappeared from the gun store, according to two law enforcement officials familiar with the investigation. A dozen of the weapons have not been found, while the others were relinquished to detectives by the purchasers, sources said. The gun thefts could stretch back several years and involve more than the batch that led to Duenas' arrest, according to two sources familiar with the probe. Read the full story on at LATimes.com. So here we have a guy who works at the gun shop at the LA Police Academy who's stealing guns and selling them to cops. And the cops are buying them. What the hell? Is the whole LAPD full of buffoons?
Do you really want an answer to that?
I would like to keep my illusions.
I think we all know the answer.
So
Well, now in their defense, you would think that coming from a gun store that they would be a legitimate purchase. You would think. That's as far as I go with that defense.
that's crazy.
I'm not even sure that's much of a defense in the first place.
But wait, there's more.
No.
Yes. Come on, what the hell? There we go.
Uncle Joe?
No, not Uncle Joe. Another piece by Breitbart by David, I don't know how to say that last name. Ng? Ng. Ing. David Ing from 9th April 2020. Alyssa Milano says stop the coronavirus gun surge after admitting to owning guns for self-defense. Actress and left-wing activist Alyssa Milano is telling people to stop buying firearms during the coronavirus pandemic, saying that the coronavirus gun surge must come to an end. Her warning comes just a few months after the former Charmed star admitted that she owns 2 guns for self-defense purposes. Alyssa Milano posted a video on Twitter late Thursday in which she admonished gun owners for stockpiling weapons and ammunition during a time of crisis, and while criminals in states across the country are being freed from prison. So let's hear what she has to say.
Hi, everybody. So I'm making this video because I'm seeing reports all over the country of Americans responding to the coronavirus outbreak by buying up guns and ammunition. And I know that we are all scared and stressed out during these really uncertain times, but that is exactly why stockpiling weapons, could have dire consequences.
Yeah, for someone trying to come in and take my TP.
For our own personal safety and those around us. The weapons that people are buying today could end up being used in households, schools, churches, bars, and on our streets in the future. So we all have to look out for each other. Please, please, please share this video to help stop the coronavirus gun surge. We can't lose any more lives to guns during this pandemic or after it's over.
Of course, I don't want to lose my life to random violence by the scumbags who are taking advantage of the fact that they're being caught and released, basically. So, yeah. I asked my wife earlier today when I first saw this tweet. Excuse me, yesterday. I asked my wife if it would be insensitive for me to reply to her tweet and point out that her coat hanger has killed more people than my guns, and she said that I shouldn't do that, so I didn't.
I would have.
You didn't, but there was a number of other people that replied to the tweets. I read through a few of them. They didn't use the phrase coat hanger, but they made similar points.
Okay. Good. I have faith in humanity then. So there we have it, folks. Our contestants for Moron of the Week. David Chipman, the Giffords guy. The Police Academy Pilferer. Alyssa Milano. And, as always, in his spot of honor, Joe Biden, just because he's Joe Biden. So, Glimtech, who is it? Giffords guy, Police Academy Pilferer, Alyssa Milano, or Joe Biden?
Well, I always hide my gun in the closet, so got to go with him. It's always there behind the
Giffords guy.
behind the microwave popcorn box. Your Giffords guy, got to be.
All right, Night Strike. Who do we got?
You put me on the spot. I don't know. Hiding in the closet behind what? A can of tuna or something?
Behind a tuna and jerky.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna have to pick him.
All right, Giffords guy. Roll call.
Well, I don't have any beef jerky, but I do have tuna, so that doesn't give me enough cover. I've already had instances with my business where people stole guns and sold them, so I've already seen that done. And I tweeted Alyssa Milano today already. So I'm going to go with Joe Biden because he's a freak.
All right. Uncle Touchy. Pickle. Who's your pick for Moron of the Week?
I'm going to have to go with the L.A. County guy that's a few eggs short of a dozen.
The Police Academy Pilferer. All right. Now is the point out there in the chat where you get to tell me who is the Moron of the Week. I see 32 people out there watching. Let's have some opinions starting now. Show it out there in the chat. Yeah, I know some of you have already done it. Do it again, because now it'll count. And no, you can't write in pickle. Sorry.
No. We can totally write in pickle. It just won't count.
Hey, I nominated myself, in the first 5 minutes of this chat.
Guy that
We know you
comments
did.
being contrary and saying pickle.
We appreciate it.
Come on, guy. All right. Milano. Alyssa Milano gets her first vote. Biden. Guy that comments is hard on for. He's really difficult for you, Pickle. He don't like you. Well, or he really does. Let's see. Ozzy says Gifford guy. Green Badger says Gifford guy. 402 says Gifford guy. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 6 for Gifford so far. Alyssa Milano. Hey, George, how you doing? Who do you think's the moron of the week? Poor Conservative says Alyssa Milano.
George always votes.
Mm-hmm. George always votes.
Right now, we've got Gifford's guy with 6, Milano with 3, Uncle Touchy with 2, and Police Academy Pilferer with 1. Grim90 says Alyssa Milano.
And now there's people out there
Alyssa
trying
Milano
to influence
from-
the chat.
from 9
7-1 is trying to influence it.
What's that?
7 Wonders is trying to, convince other people to vote Milano.
Well, he's probably just a Russian bot.
Ooh, Russians. Watch out.
Come on out there in the chat. Who else? Who's our moron of the week? Right now we got, let's see, 6 for Chipman, 1 for the Police Academy guy, 5 for Alyssa Milano, and 2 for Joe Biden. I'm going to vote for Alyssa Milano myself. So that makes it 6 for her, 6 for Chipman, 1 for police, and 2 for Uncle Touchy. Anybody want to break the tie? Come on, folks. Let me get a vote in here one way or t'other. Dan McElroy says all of them. Jorge says Alyssa Milano. Chris Fulmer says Alyssa Milano. Guy that comments wants to give a quarter of a vote for all of them. And Pickle. Dan says Milano. Oh, she's pulling ahead. Shut up. Don't say that. All right. I'm going to call this, and we are going to go Alyssa Milano. You are the moron of the week.
And there we had another tale of stupidity in this week's episode of
Moron of the Week.
All right. I really need to do up an intro and an outro for this next one too, because it's been a part of the show since the very beginning, and I should honor that, you know. Yes,
Up to
Grim.
you.
Yes, Grim. You're thinking it right where I was. Yep. She pulls ahead instead of, well. Anyway, the next segment is Roll Call 219's favorite segment, self-defense shoutouts. Self-defense shoutouts are not where I'm reveling in the proposition that the bad guy won the room temperature challenge and took a dirt nap. It's where I revel in the proposition that the good guy had the means, method, and opportunity to prevent themselves from doing the same. First up, we have from Patch.com. Deadly home invasion leads to arrest of Tennessee man. Well, he looks really sad, doesn't he? A Tennessee resident is charged with murder in the death of a man who police said accompanied him in an attempted home invasion. Arlington Heights, Illinois. A Tennessee man is facing a felony murder charge after his accomplice in an attempted home invasion in Arlington Heights was shot and killed by the residence's homeowner, Arlington Heights police announced Tuesday. Officers responded to the 2400 block of North Evergreen Street Avenue at approximately 1:57 p.m. on Saturday after a resident of the home called 911 reporting a man with a gun in the home who was likely shot. The body of 58-year-old Larry D. Brodach of Buffalo Grove was later discovered on the second floor of the home. The Cook County Medical Examiner's Office ruled the death as a homicide. A subsequent investigation revealed that Larry D. Brodach and Bradley J. Finnan, 38, of Chattanooga, Tennessee, planned to force their way into the residence and rob the homeowners at gunpoint, police said. Once the pair gained entry, the male homeowner fought with Finnan and chased him out of the house, according to police. After re-entering his house, the homeowner retrieved a handgun from a safe and confronted Brodach, who was pointing his own firearm at the homeowner's family, police said. Brodach attacked the homeowner with a knife, police said, and after a brief struggle, the homeowner fired one shot into Brodach's abdomen and fled the house with his family to await the police. Finnan was charged with felony murder and home invasion. Arlington Heights Deputy Police Chief Mark Recker said Finnan is being held without bond. And speaking of Recker, this guy got beat down. I wish this article, let me see if I can find, maybe this one. Does this one have the video? Because there's an article around here somewhere. Maybe it's the Breitbart piece that on this has the let's look here, has the video of this, because this guy gave this dude a righteous beatdown. Oh yeah, that's it right here. Let's watch this because it's pretty freaking awesome.
Police say Finian and another suspect forced their way into this home at gunpoint, but the homeowner managed to chase Finian out of the house. Homeowner went back in, shot and killed the other suspect with his personal handgun, and police took Finian into custody.
He beat him down with his ass crack showing. That was great. So good for you, Arlington Heights homeowner. Good for you. Next up. No thanks. I'd just like to keep reading. Next up from the Cheney Free Press. Homeowner shoots suspect in West Plains home invasion by John McCallum from 4/6/2020. Spokane County. A man who said he was just doing homeowners' dishes was shot by the homeowner in a possible occupied residential burglary last night. According to a Spokane County Sheriff's Office report, deputies and Airway Heights police officers were called to the home on the 2600 block of North Colville Road, northeast of Airway Heights and north of Palisades Park, just off Trails Road, at about 11:55 p.m. on a call of burglary in progress. The report said the homeowner and his wife were upstairs watching TV and had just turned it off when he heard a noise downstairs. Fearing an intruder, the homeowner armed himself with a shotgun and went downstairs where he encountered a man, later identified as 29-year-old Kenneth B. Caldero, in the kitchen using the microwave. When the homeowner asked Caldero what he was doing, he replied he was doing their dishes, upon which the homeowner told him to leave. I'd have told him he had to dry him and put him away, too. Caldero failed to follow the instructions, and the homeowner again demanded he leave. Caldero began walking toward the house's staircase and, fearing for his family's safety, yelled at him to stop or he would fire, at which point Caldero apparently advanced on the homeowner and a struggle ensued. The homeowner fired a round of birdshot into the home's floor, at which point Caldero stepped back and then again advanced on the homeowner. But he should have ran, shouldn't he? Oh, wait, maybe it's because he didn't go out on the balcony and fire it in the air. That's why he didn't run. Anyhow, the homeowner was able to load another round in the shotgun's chamber as Caldero continued his advance and fire a round into the intruder's leg. Caldero subsequently fled the residence and was found by officers a short distance away, yelling for help and bleeding profusely from his thigh. Officers applied immediate medical attention to deal with Caldero's wound, and after medics arrived and rendered further assistance, he was transported to a local hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Caldero told officers he thought he was at a friend's house and went inside to use the bathroom, but must have gone into the wrong house because some guy shot him. He provided the name of the friend, but after further questioning said his friend was in prison, which deputies were able to confirm. Deputies were unable to locate any call history of Caldero's friend at the victim's residence or even near it. Caldero remains hospitalized and will face first-degree burglary charges when released. Deputies said the homeowner will not face charges with the information currently known. Good. I think he was showed a lot of restraint in when and how he decided to fire. Probably more than I would have, but good for him. It still worked. He got to stay home and didn't get injured and didn't go to the hospital. Oh, wait, no, that was the same one. So, yeah, I guess I had that one pulled up. We were going to watch that. So there was two cases, the Arlington Heights guy and the dishes guy. So good for those folks who were able to defend themselves and not let the bad guys win the day. Because there are a lot of people out there who would say that's preferable, and I, for one, am not one of them. Seven Wonder says, I'm starting to think we need a Moron Intruder of the Week category. Yeah, no kidding, right?
I think we need to send him a free class on how to shoot bad guys.
Yeah.
Warning shots, don't cut it.
Chris Fulmer says that last story should have been butt crack beatdown. Kind of has a nice ring to it. Yes, it does. Whoever wrote those headlines missed an opportunity there. They absolutely did. They had a prime opportunity to have a great headline, and they just ignored it. Well, I want to say thank you to everybody out there. It's time to start rolling up the sidewalks and putting up the awnings. I really appreciate everybody being here. Let me go ahead and run through the panel and give them a chance to leave their final thoughts and make any plugs they'd like to make. Glimtech, do you have anything for us?
Nope. Other than have a good week, have a good night. Thank you for the invite.
Always welcome.
Get out and walk around, do something. Don't shove yourself in the house.
That's right. Hey, folks, we're using GunTube Chamber here, and I'm going to let Night Strike tell you how you can support GunTube Chamber so that we can keep using this. Pluck the duck, man. Load one in the chamber.
Is that my cue?
Yes, that is your
cue. Yeah, I got it.
Oh, okay.
I wake them up.
Check out guntube.org. I've got links on the bottom left for ways you can support GunTube via PayPal, via Patreon, or hell, you can even sign up for a GunTube account and become a paid member and, get access to even more stuff on GunTube. So check that out.
What's it cost to be a paid member?
We have different levels of membership.
Okay.
So there's if I don't have any advertising for GunTube. I've tried to get advertising, sponsorship, whatnot. I just can't do it. So I have to add on paid membership levels to offset the cost of advertising. So that's what I'm trying to do right now. Whether it works or not, who knows?
Well, you know what? This stuff ain't free, folks. And, I support GunTube via Patreon. I absolutely encourage everybody to do so. Because if for no other reason, this right here, this chamber, this is awesome. I love this. This is great. So go ahead and go over to guntube.org and throw some love. Roll call. Anything you'd like to leave us with?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Great show tonight, like always. You can find me at Roll Call 219 on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram, and you can find me on Twitter, Roll Call 2010/219. Where I'm probably going to tweet Joe Biden and Alyssa Milano for the rest of the times they probably live. And maybe until Joe Biden loses. Alyssa Milano, she's a schmuck. But also, if you want to, you can go over to Patreon. Just Google around. You can find me there. If you want to contribute, I ask people if you're hard up for a couple of bucks, don't contribute. I say that to my Patreons that are on there now. If you want to save those couple of bucks, save those couple of bucks, man. You never know what's going to happen. So we can pick up after the coronavirus goes away or whatever it does after this. Please support your state and locals. Pay attention to what's going on. It's very important that you do that. What I've tried to implement on my channel, on the Roll Call 219 channel, is pay attention. Pay attention to what's happening in society. These people that everybody praises and the Trump lovers and all, they're standing on a political stage, on a national stage, actually telling you what they're going to do. Please heed those warnings. Take them. Use them against. Make some friends. Get together. And go out and make your own videos. I encourage everybody, go out and make your own videos. And don't be making some weird videos. Just go out and make videos. Continue to spread information. I always say it, when information stops, that becomes a problem because then it doesn't reach other people to either give them a heads up or to inform them. So Thanks again, Budget. It's always a great show. Take it away, man.
And last but certainly not least, the tactical pickle himself, Calaveras 32 Special. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with, sir?
Thank you for the invite. I appreciate it.
Sure.
And I know the mistake the guy made with the shotgun. As Joe Biden said, you need to fire 2 shots into the air. You only fired a single warning shot. Joking aside, all joking aside, I encourage everyone out there to support, GunTube and, Budget Guns and Gear Reviews.
And speaking of Budget Guns and Gear Reviews, I'd like to say thank you to everybody who supports me over on Patreon. If you're not a budget buddy, go on over and check it out. But more important than that is, I want to thank you guys for all the support you showed just by sticking around here till the very end. There's still 28 of you. 27. One just bailed. Still 27 of you out there watching this at the very end of this, watching all of it. I can't tell you how much it means to me that you guys are spending your Friday night listening to us. I always humbled and amazed, man. I say this every week, but every week it's true. You guys make this worth doing for me, for sure. So, make sure that you get on your Congress critters and elected representatives, state, local, national, all that. Let them know that this stuff is not acceptable. Let Congress know that we're not going to tolerate them messing around with throwing all kinds of pet project pork provisions into the stimulus package. Don't use a national emergency to further their own political agendas. Send them a snail mail, email, telephone, telegraph, smoke signals, carrier pigeons, bicycle messengers, semaphore, heliograph, anything you have to do to let them know what you think, and never, ever, ever give up the fight. Talk to you guys at the next one.